She got stopped like her presence violated something sacred. The front desk man didn't check her name. He checked her skin, her jacket, her rifle. Worn, old, brown like her. Like all three belonged outside the gate instead of inside it. His eyes crawled over her like she was dust clinging to the edge of polished glass. "VIP lanes don't allow the lost or confused," he said, voice coated with politeness that didn't reach his smirk. He said it loud enough for people to hear, loud enough to remind her this place wasn't made for her. Behind her, laughter flicked like a switch. "Damn," someone snorted. "They letting the cleaning crew in now?" Another kid in a snow-white tracksuit leaned against the entryway pillar like he owned the air. "Is this part of the charity program or just a lost field trip?" She didn't answer. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was calculation. She reached into her jacket and pulled a battered VIP pass, the edges worn like a memory. Without a word, she placed it under the scanner. Beep. Green. The desk clerk's smirk cracked. "This is a mistake," he said under his breath. But she was already walking past, through their laughter, through their stares, her boots thudding softly on the polished floor like a countdown. Inside, Hawthorne Elite Range looked like money had married power and given birth to precision. Glass walls, marble black as night, digital boards glowing with names that came from family trees, not tryouts. Senators' daughters, generals' sons, gold medal prodigies. This wasn't just a place to shoot. This was a place to prove you were born worthy of it. She moved through it like a ghost that didn't ask permission to haunt. Her olive jacket looked like a crime against the perfectly tailored tactical suits brushing past her. Her scuffed jeans like graffiti on polished marble. She didn't match. She didn't care. At 23, Harper Lane had nothing polished about her. Her beauty was sharp-edged, untouched by salons. Her braids were pulled back tight, clean, deliberate. Her dark skin soaked the light above. Her eyes didn't plead. They dared. Slung over her shoulder was an M1 Garand that looked too old to compete. A relic to most, a legacy to her. It had been her father's. Colonel Thomas Lane, a sniper who once changed the outcome of wars with a single shot. She had trained with this rifle in the woods, not country clubs. Her stance was instinct, her breath calibrated, her aim inherited. But to them, she was a thrift store interruption, an eyesore in a temple of wealth, a mistake made visible. Derek, the desk clerk, wasn't done. He raised his voice just enough. "This isn't a range for ordinary people," he said with a sneer meant for an audience. "VIP lanes are for members, not whatever you are." The boy in the designer tracksuit, Connor Blake, son of a hedge fund god, laughed louder now. "They letting maintenance in to polish the lanes?" More laughter, more phones, more posts. Harper didn't react. She brushed her thumb across her father's pass like it was armor. Her voice, when it came, was low and clean. "I'm a guest." Beep. Green again. She walked forward. Calm. Alone. The stream was already live. The captions were already cruel. They didn't know who she was. But the range would. "This is Hawthorne," Vanessa said with a smile as cold as steel. "Not a salvage yard." The crowd erupted. Their laughter was a weapon, aimed and ready. Phones hovered like vultures, recording every second. Captions exploded onto screens like gunfire. "Kick her out. Fraud. Stole that pass from the trash." A boy near the vending machine yelled, "Bet she pulled that ID out of a dumpster." Harper didn't flinch. Her hands stayed steady. Her stare cut straight ahead like she hadn't heard a thing. But somewhere, on a cracked hospital tablet, her mother watched the stream. Her face gone pale, breath hitched with every cruel word hurled at her daughter. The air in the room began to change. The cruelty wasn't subtle anymore. It had gathered like smoke, ready to ignite. Hawthorne's interior was a cathedral built for the elite. 50-meter shooting lanes stretched beneath a vaulted ceiling that sparkled with tech and power. Every screen tracked bullets like stock prices. Every light hummed in tune with money. Leather chairs cradled people who'd never held their own bags. Rifles gleamed with engravings more decorative than dangerous. One man sipped an espresso worth more than Harper's entire outfit. And still, her jacket drew every eye like a scratch on a luxury car. Tyler Reed, lounging sideways across a couch, grinned over his $12,000 rifle. "So even the janitorial squad gets range time now?" His voice cut through the room like a bad song on a loudspeaker. His entourage, a crew of prep school aristocrats, snorted in approval. One of them squinted at Harper's boots. "She gonna clean the targets too?" he said, tossing a spent casing at her feet like it was trash meant for her hands. Harper stepped over it without breaking stride. Her face was still, her silence practiced. Every breath she took was an act of rebellion, every blink a refusal. Then came the instructor, Professor Laura Vance, buttoned up in a blazer that probably cost more than Harper's rent, broke from the group of coaches, heels clicking like gunfire. Her look was polished, her pity rehearsed. "This is highly irregular," she said, voice slick with condescension, designed to be heard. "Hawthorne is a training ground for professionals, not charity cases with antique rifles." She didn't have to say black, the room already had. She gestured to the M1 Garand on Harper's back, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Your presence undermines the expectations of this facility. Perhaps a community range would be more appropriate." Applause followed, short, measured, like they were clapping for a system that had never failed them. "You can leave now," Vance added, voice dipped in sugar and spite, "and we'll pretend this didn't happen." Harper's braid shifted slightly as she adjusted the strap on her rifle. Her eyes flickered, not with fear, but with something old, something carved in bone. But her face remained calm. On the live stream, her mother's hands clenched the bedsheets. Her jaw trembled. Watching them dress her daughter in pity and call it protocol. The crowd was still cheering when Vanessa stepped to her lane, adjusting a scope worth $6,000. She looked over her shoulder. "This isn't a cosplay convention," she said, laughing into the mic. "Sweetheart looks like a rejected movie extra." Comments surged. "Who let her in? Wrong side of town. This ain't a protest, sis." Colonel Raymond Pierce, head coach and ex-Marine, stood nearby with a look of someone who'd already decided her worth. "You even know which end of that thing fires?" he barked, his voice weathered but sharp. Harper locked eyes with him. No anger, no fear, just the steady stillness of someone who'd been doubted before. "I'll figure it out," she said. The room laughed, but they didn't know what was coming. His score lit the screen like a victory banner. 10, 9.9, 10 again. The range howled with applause. Ethan Caldwell turned from his lane with the grace of someone who expected to win. His smile wasn't friendly. It was a loaded weapon. "If you beat me, I walk. No excuses," he said, voice smooth, amplified for the live stream. Then he leaned closer, dropping his tone to a mocking whisper. "But if I win, you disappear, janitor." Laughter tore through the air like gunfire. Phones rose. Lenses locked on Harper. "No pressure, sweetheart," he added, breath warm against the space between them. Harper didn't blink. She nodded once, quiet as a fuse waiting to burn. Her silence didn't ask for respect. It demanded it. The online audience exploded. Viewers swarmed the stream, hearts sinking with hers. The moment felt like a cliff edge, and they all waited to see if she'd fly or fall. She took her place at lane 8. Connor Blake sauntered over, his tracksuit screaming money, attitude, and entitlement. He looked her up and down, then pointed to the rifle resting on the bench. "That thing's prehistoric," he said, loud enough for the stream. "Bet it crumbles before it even fires." He flicked a coffee stirrer at her boots. "Pick that up, maintenance girl. While you're at it, polish my barrel." Behind him, snickers erupted. Captions followed. "Hatrange trash. Scrap metal sniper incoming." Vanessa adjusted her scope, gaze slicing toward Harper. "You're embarrassing yourself, honey," she said, her voice sweet and scalding. "Go home before you shoot your own foot." Coach Pierce stepped forward, clipboard in hand like a gavel. "This isn't a daycare," he said, glaring. "We don't run training wheels for museum pieces." Harper's fingers moved with precision, loading the Garand with hands that had done this in silence, in shadows, for years. Her expression didn't shift. Calm, still, eyes like locked sights. From the hospital bed, her mother watched, knuckles white against the sheets. Every word they threw was a bruise on her daughter's pride. She couldn't speak for her, but she didn't need to. Harper never let words fight her battles. The comments grew crueler. "Scrapyard shooter. Fake shooter in faded jeans. Another stunt hire." Tyler Reed stood from his leather throne. "Why's she even here?" he shouted, arms wide. "This is a shooting range, not a soup kitchen." Cheers followed, the sound of privilege protecting itself. Then Mia Hall, dressed head to toe in designer, crumpled her scorecard and tossed it at Harper's feet. "Clean that up, janitor," she said with a smile full of venom. The paper slid to a stop at her boots. Harper didn't move, didn't pause, didn't even look down. She adjusted her rifle, Her braid fell slightly across her back, her shoulders square. 50 meters ahead, the target waited in silence. The mob behind her burned with fury. At her presence, her defiance, her refusal to break. A retired general, now range consultant, leaned toward Coach Pierce. His voice wasn't hushed. "This is what happens when you hand out scholarships to prove a point," he said. "No breathing, no rhythm, no place here." Some nodded. Others filmed. Vanessa looked over, optics still gleaming. "You're not just out of place," she said. "You're the reason this place's standards are slipping." Connor chimed in. "Bet she's never even fired that thing. Probably forged the pass." The laughter swelled into a chorus of contempt. Harper stood still. Only her fingertips twitched near the trigger guard. A tremor so small it barely existed. But her face remained carved from stone. Her silence held the line. Then Ethan returned to his lane. He moved like a man made for this, each shot smooth and effortless. His rifle roared. The board lit up again. 10.9.9.10. Another round of cheers. All of it aimed at one goal: to make sure Harper never dared to fire back. "Good luck, thrift store," Ethan called out, his grin curved like a blade. His voice echoed with swagger, made for the cameras. "Don't trip over that antique." The live stream burst alive again. "She's done. Can't top that. Pack it up, poverty princess." Harper stepped to the line like she'd been born there. Her hands wrapped around the M1 Garand like it wasn't old. It was eternal. The crowd stilled. Phones hovered. Fingers waited, hungry for the moment she'd fall apart. She exhaled once. Then everything else disappeared. 50 meters ahead, a single red dot burned against a sea of rings. She narrowed in, her body still, her breath measured. The world, reduced to sight and silence. The first shot cracked. Ping. The screen lit up. 10. A murmur. Someone laughed too quickly, already calling it luck. Tyler folded his arms. One hit doesn't make her a marksman. Harper didn't even blink. Second shot. 10. Third. 10. A chime rang out from the system, subtle but sharp. 3 perfect shots triggered the celebration code. Vanessa's smirk twitched. Her hand slipped slightly off her optic. Shot 4. 10. Now the room wasn't mocking. It was watching. Even the screens seemed to breathe slower. Coach Pierce gripped his clipboard harder. Shot 5. 10. A headset slipped from an athlete's lap, forgotten as jaws started to clench and legs stopped shifting. 6. 10. The lounge went silent. The kind of silence that wasn't respect. Not yet. But fear that maybe, just maybe, they were witnessing something bigger than they could contain. Harper stood still as the lights. Her jacket, the one they'd called garbage, seemed to glow under the overheads. Her braid shifted slightly, catching the air after each shot like a flag waving in defiance. Ethan's grin had vanished. His eyes tightened. His jaw set. Shot 7. 10. The sound from the speakers now felt like church bells. Tyler's lips parted. No sound came. 8. 10. Vanessa yanked her headset off, palms slick with sweat. She looked down, as if the floor might give her an exit. Shot 9. 10. Phones dropped. Hands froze. Nobody moved. And then, 10. Dead center. The bullet punched through the heart of the first shot like they'd shared breath. The target didn't look hit. It looked erased. The board flashed. 100.00 facility record broken. The speakers rang out with the triumph tone, something few had heard and fewer ever triggered. Harper lowered her rifle slowly, her breathing steady. Her eyes scanned the room like she was reclaiming it, one heartbeat at a time. Then she spoke. "My father taught me to shoot when I was 6. The words were soft, but they didn't need volume. They sliced clean. He was the top sniper in his unit, while you were still learning how to click a mouse." The crowd shifted, their heads dropping like they'd been scolded by history itself. Not one of them moved. Not one of them laughed. Coach Pierce rose from his seat. The ex-Marine with medals on his chest and dust in his bones looked at her like he'd just seen a ghost he respected. He clapped. Once, then again. Louder. One by one, hands followed. A reluctant wave of applause swelled into a storm. Ethan didn't move. He stood there, stunned, the grin long gone. His face colored with something new. Humility. Then Harper smiled. Just a flicker. And that flicker shattered him. "You're not just better," Ethan said, voice cracked and low enough to carry across the stream. "You're untouchable." The room fell into silence. Not stunned. Shamed. All the taunts, the labels, the dismissive smirks. They didn't echo now. They cowered. Ethan's eyes, once weaponized with confidence, now softened, tracing the girl who'd just rewritten every rule he thought he understood. Her jacket, once mocked, now looked like a crown made of grit. The stream caught fire with new words. She owned him. Queen. Legend. Coach Pierce stepped forward, his voice booming. No longer hostile. Now something close to reverent. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, "your score is no longer the bar. Step aside." Ethan didn't argue. His shoulders dropped, hands at his sides. But his eyes stayed on Harper. Her smile wasn't wide. It didn't need to be. It glowed low, warm, and dangerous. It lit something in him that nothing at Hawthorne ever had. The crowd erupted, but not in mockery, in awe. This wasn't just her win. It was his loss. And he knew it. Her 10 shots didn't just top his board. They cut through everything he'd thought made him elite. Money, connections, gear. He had all of that. She had aim, and purpose, and silence sharper than any insult he'd ever spoken. He stepped forward, voice now hushed, almost reverent. "I was wrong," he said. "You're incredible." Harper nodded. The smile she gave him was slight, but enough to stop him in his tracks. They all watched. Even in stillness, she commanded the room. Coach Pierce joined her, pride tucked into his rough voice. "That was the cleanest shooting I've seen in 4 decades, he said. "You don't just carry your father's name. You carry his fire." Her eyes lowered slightly. Not in modesty, in memory. That promise she'd made? She'd kept it. The range's director stepped out from the shadows. General Marcus Tate, sharp suit, silver hair, reputation thick as armor. His voice carried like it belonged on national broadcasts. "Harper Lane," he said, "has redefined excellence." His words went straight to the livestream. The audience outside these walls roared. Inside, everyone went still. "Her record, a perfect 100, is now Hawthorne's standard," Tate continued. He turned to the staff, his gaze colder than bullet steel. "As for those who mocked her, Derek, Professor Vance, suspended, pending review." Gasps cracked the silence. The elite flinched like the floor shifted beneath them. "This range," Tate said, "is about skill, not status." He turned and tapped a screen. A new plaque appeared above the leaderboard. "Harper Lane, record holder." She stood beneath it, the light catching her just right. Her smile rose. Not loud, not for show. Just enough, just real. Ethan's chest tightened. The stream flooded again. "Harper Lane, truth in 10 bullets." She rewrote the rules. Connor Blake slipped away. No swagger left in his limbs. Vanessa zipped her gear with mechanical shame, her modeling contract feeling like paper in a storm. Tyler Reed didn't speak. His group dispersed like shadows in daylight. Even the general who mocked her pedigree earlier now stood flushed, his apology lost in applause. Mia Hull folded her jacket over her arm. She left without a word. They had laughed. They had doubted. Now, they looked up at a black girl in a faded jacket with a second-hand rifle, who had left a permanent mark on the heart of their empire. And Ethan? He lingered. Pride replaced by something else. Not regret. Reverence. He took a step toward her as the crowd thinned, his voice low. "Can we talk?" he asked. "I think I owe you everything." Harper's smile grew, slow, certain, the kind that didn't just brighten a room. It shifted the gravity. Her eyes met Ethan's, and in that glance was something unspoken. Understanding, forgiveness, maybe even the start of something unfamiliar. She nodded once. A new chapter had begun. Ethan stepped toward her. The cocky strut he'd worn like a second skin now stripped away. What replaced it wasn't shame, not entirely, but awe. A quiet intensity anchored in the realization that he'd just witnessed something rare, something pure. "I don't deserve your time," he said, voice lower now. His gaze caught in the curve of her lips. "But I'd be a fool not to ask for it. You're not just a shooter, Harper. You're a force." Silence swept across the range, but it wasn't awkward. It was sacred. The crowd didn't speak, didn't scroll, didn't breathe. They just watched as the boy who once ruled this place stood vulnerable before the girl who'd just redefined it. The stream caught every word. "He's in love. Of course he is." Harper tilted her head slightly, her gaze softening just enough to make him stumble again. Then she said, "Coffee's a start." Her voice was quiet, but it built a bridge between them, strong enough to carry what might come next. The staff behind the counter paused, eyes wide. The girl they'd mocked hours ago was now something else entirely. A record, a reckoning, a reminder. Her name wasn't just trending, it was etched into the steel of the range and into the silence they used to control. Ethan's heart raced again. Not from ego, but reverence. Her smile had become the moment he'd fallen. And somehow, it felt like only the beginning. The audience cheered not for spectacle, but for transformation. Harper hadn't just shattered a record. She'd shattered every assumption they'd carried like armor. And now, as her name climbed the leaderboard in real time, she stood beneath it with the calm of a storm finally settled. Harper Lane, 100th record holder. A permanent correction to their legacy. Phones lowered. No one recorded now. They remembered instead. The room that once rejected her now felt changed, like something sacred had passed through and demanded better. A girl who'd walked in wearing mockery now stood robed in myth. From across the range, a young athlete stepped forward, barely more than a kid, voice shaking. "I was wrong to laugh," she said. "You're what this place should be." Nods followed. Applause, quiet, honest, rippled through the space. The tide had turned, and this time it didn't break her down. It lifted her. Ethan watched her with new eyes. Not as competition, as compass. Even the general who had dismissed her bloodline stood frozen, then clapped slowly, face red but real. His words were swallowed by the moment. His old pride dissolved. Harper didn't bow. She didn't gloat. She just stood, steady in her jacket, her rifle now slung like a legacy fulfilled. A symbol, a signal, not just for her, but for every girl who had ever been told not here. The crowd erupted. The live stream surged. She changed everything. Harper inspires. This is what excellence looks like. A month later they were dating. Ethan, once the golden boy, now walked beside her like a man reborn. He didn't just admire her. He learned from her. Strength, he'd realized, wasn't built from privilege. It was earned, fought for, carried. 3 months after that, he proposed. A ring simple and bright, like her. They married quietly. No press, no noise, just purpose. The plaque at the range read only one name now. Harper Lane, 100. Hawthorne Elite wasn't just for the elite anymore. It was hers. She had reshaped it with stillness and fire. With a faded jacket and 10 perfect shots. She didn't need their approval. She was the mark.